sellers are reluctant to talk about that price reduction. So they're willing to wait a little bit because let's say I have a $30 million property. Well, if I take a 30% haircut and I'm down to 20, that's still a lot of money. If I wait 2 years, if I just hold on to my $30 million price and get it, I can't take that 20 million in 3 years and get it back to 30. So that's kind of the rationale is the scarcity. It's my only bite of the apple. I'd rather just hang around pretty close to my price. I might take a little reduction, but I don't mean 30% or 40% or 50% reduction. There's there's a cat and mouse game going. Now, do things happen? Sure. There are those life-changing events. Someone passes away, someone gets divorced, someone becomes incompetent, and the next generation may go, I don't love this land nearly as much as daddy or granddaddy did. What's the number? What's the deal?
Quick favor before we jump in. It always surprised me that a large percentage of people who listen to this show regularly haven't yet subscribed. If you're a commercial real estate operator, investor, or builder who values conversations like this around deals, capital, and technology, please take 2 seconds and hit subscribe. It's a simple, free way to support the show. My commitment to you is that my team and I will continue bringing you higher level operators, stronger conversations, and real execution level insights every single week. Thank you. I truly appreciate it. Welcome back to the AI Edge podcast, where we sit down with operators, investors, and builders who are actually in the arena making real decisions in commercial real estate and building with discipline through real market conditions. Today's conversation is about land, cycles, and real craft behind getting complex deals across the finish line, not just the headlines, not hype, the operator's reality. My guest is Bill, founder of Senior Advisor at Eshenbaugh Land Company, one of the most respected land brokerage and advisory firms in Tampa Bay market. Bill holds both the CCIM designation and the ALC designation, has been at the center of major land transactions for decades, and has led through multiple market cycles, including time as senior asset manager during the RTC era, which means he's seen what happens when liquidity disappears and the market turns. He's also the author of the new historical novel, Up the Shenandoah. Bill, welcome to the show.
My pleasure.
Bill, I want to start off at the beginning. When someone asks you what you do today, what do you tell them? And what do you think most people still misunderstand about the land business?
Well, first thing I tell them is that I represent landowners selling land for development in about an hour and a half drive radius of Tampa. What they probably misunderstand is how difficult it is, not just for me, but for the process for a landowner who wants to maximize what they get for their land to go from a cattle farm, a citrus grove, whatever they own today in agriculture, from that to the day you can build a house on it. They don't understand, even they don't understand. And we tell them time and time again going in, it's 2 to 3 years. The process has gotten so long with government regulations, new regulations, slow down bureaucracies, more regulations, more fees. It just keeps adding on. And the process that once took 6 to 12 months then became 12 to 18 months. And then when everyone went home from COVID and slowly drifted back to their offices, it's gone. In most cases, for me, a large tract of land will take 24 to 36 months from the time we enter into an agreement to sell it to someone until we actually have the permits in hand to build on it.
Wow. You've been doing this for a high level of decades. What did you learn early that still guides you today?
You got to get up early and get out in front of the crowd, figure out where trends are going, where builders want to go, and they have to figure out where home buyers want to go. I kiddingly did a presentation back in 2005 when our market was red hot, and I was on a program, I think for NAIOP, Office Industrial Group. I actually had just finished touring a bunch of properties in a little helicopter, and it was a little single-engine helicopter and we took the doors off it so I could hang in the back seat and strap myself in, hang out and take photographs of properties as I went. And so my whole theme was, you got to get up earlier than the dirt dog and fly out to the edge of the market right now because it's so hot. By the time you drive out there, it's gone. Where's it going? What are the conditions? What's my story out there? So I'm selling land for people today that I started cultivating 20 and 30 years ago. I'm cultivating people today that my young team will probably be dealing with 10 and 20 years from now.
Amazing. What part of the land deals is the most underestimated by people coming from other asset classes?
Again, it's time. I talked to a leasing agent who can go out and lease 1 million square foot of industrial and have the whole deal done in 180 days, 90 days, maybe something like that. And he's paid. That done for them. For us as brokers means the broker's actually been paid. They get paid pretty quickly. And we tell them that, well, 90 days, we might be partly through our due diligence. 180, we'll pretty well understand the property. And in 365 days, we'll have filed for zoning. And in 720 to 1,000 days, we might have a payday. And their eyes just bulge, they just head spin.
It's a long process, Bill. Why so
It,
long?
most of it's government. There's a whole lot of steps. And this is, when I say all this, it's to maximize the dollars to the landowner. This is a one-time event, a generational event for somebody. Maybe they've owned the land since before the Civil War, which, 100 and, I don't know, close to 200 years here, 150 years ago, more. They've owned the land for a long time. They only get one bite of the apple. So to get the best bite of the apple, they usually sell subject to the buyer, A, getting it rezoned, and B, getting it permitted, ready for development. And so the whole process, just there's a whole lot of layers of things we have to go through. This is a crazy one. I went through one not too long ago because Florida, back in the 1940s, World War II, we were a military preparation base down here. They built air bases all over the place. They could fly planes, 365 days a year. They brought these young guys down here, threw down a mile of runway and made them pilots. Well, what are they going to do when you're a pilot? You have to learn how to drop bombs, right? So they leased land from ranchers. They drop dummy bombs and then they drop live bombs on it. And so some properties today still have live ordnance that didn't explode when it hit the ground. We just ran into one not too long ago that took us after we finished the first phase, sold to a home builder. In another property, not related to ours, but near ours, they found a piece of unexploded ordnance. And the builder just came back and said, we can't buy any more land in this area until it's clean. Cleaning means using a ground penetrating radar machine. It looks about like a big lawnmower, and you drive it by push it back and forth across 1,000 acres. That takes a long time. It took $2 million. And this property had been used by the motorcycle kids and ATVs. There were millions of beer cans, but fortunately not one piece of unexploded ordnance out there after 2 years and $2 million or so expenditure to clean it up. So just crazy stuff like that sometimes happens. Just in a normal process of looking for protected species, protected trees, wetlands, floodplains, high wind velocity zones, and the list just goes on and on and on. And every time we have a catastrophe, we change the rules. We had a couple of hurricanes here 2 years ago, and we changed the floodplain elevations from some cases, some neighborhoods from 5 feet to 11 feet. That's 6 foot of fill. 6 foot of fill at $25 or $30 a cubic yard is a lot of money. So to understand it, spend the time with the geotech and the engineers and the surveyors and all those folks, and then find a contractor that can haul the dirt in and compact it and get it tested. And everything just takes time for every one of these things.
Wow. And that's all in the Tampa area?
It's throughout Florida, really. It's we've gone from, I don't know, 13 million people when I came here to 21 or 22 million people in the few decades I've been here, but the growth is tremendous. Certainly COVID gave us a big shot of migration here, mostly from New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia. And you put a lot more people here. Some of them aren't happy when they get here. It's not what they expected. And everyone complains about the traffic. Not only the ones that just got here, but the ones that have been here forever. Oh my God, the traffic's awful because it takes a long time to plan a new road and get it funded and built. There's resistance from neighborhoods who want to end the migration, and just, lots of resistance. Just nothing is as easy as it was last year. There's nothing going to be as easy as it was 10 years ago. And 20 years from now, it's going to be a lot harder than it is today, I'm sure. It's never going to get easier.
You described your career journey in one word, rodeo. What does that mean to you?
Well, I'm a cowboy at heart. Wore cowboy boots. I rode a horse this morning before I came to work. Rodeo to me it's the Wild West. If you're riding a bucking stock, a bull, or a horse, and you come out of that chute, you better be ready for the ride. And you don't know if they're going left, going right, if they're going to pitch you a mile high in the air. Can you stay on? And when you come down, do they try and kill you? Some bulls and some horses will go after you. So, you got to stay on for 8 seconds to win the money. 7 seconds doesn't count. Being gored by the bull doesn't count. You're kind of out of it. So it's brutal. It's kind of fun. When you win a lot of money. You win a lot of glory and fame too, I guess.
It's exciting. Well, part of the rodeo that most people never see from the stands?
Wow. probably how badly some of those guys get busted up, and some of the stock too. They do a good job of trying to hide any injured animals as well as cowboys.
What separates people from who say stay in the arena for decades from people who just burn out and get wiped out?
You got to get up every morning, put your pants on, and go to work. And no matter how bad you got slapped around today, go after it again tomorrow. I think that separates the intent. Just keeping your focus. You're going to have failures. You're going to have things that fall apart. They're going to have times, and I think everybody I know in the business had times they weren't sure how they're going to pay their bills tomorrow. God, what do I do now? I just keep on focusing, and I think narrowing your focus rather than broadening your focus generally works. Get really specialized and be very good at what you're doing, and just keep the eye on the ball, man. It ain't over. We say today it's not over till the broker's wires clear the bank. It's not over till then. So I've lost deals. Someone else got them. The next buyer couldn't make it work. The same owner decided they didn't like the new broker they hired to replace me. They bring me back in the rodeo. You got to keep the faith and don't burn bridges, and just keep a focus every day when you get up. What can I do today to make it a better day for my office, my family, and for me, for my success?
Couldn't imagine having to do a deal for over 2 years and losing the deal. That's got to be heart-wrenching.
Oh, it's crushing. Yeah. Yeah. But it keeps the faint-hearted out. I think it keeps a lot of folks out who thinks it's an easy business. They rush in and try and do a deal. They go, wow, this isn't any fun. So I love doing business, even cooperating on deals with guys who are my contemporaries that have been in this business 20 or 30 years. We know what the rodeo is going to look like. We know one of us is going to win, maybe the other one won't. But I'll go quail hunting with my best competition. I like them. They're good guys. I'll also go for their throat when it's come time to get a deal, and they will do the same to me.
You live in the market where you're walking sites, working entitlements, dealing with real buyers and real sellers. How would you describe the Florida land market right now in operator terms, not headlines?
It's cautious. We have had a lot to deal with following COVID. We had this big run up, and then we oversupplied in some cases, and an interest rate doubled on us, and that's been a problem for apartment developers who had a project. You got a $100 million project in the middle of construction. You can't stop. So we're cautiously thinking that 2026 could have some turns for the better for us. That it's an election year, midterms. That's always good. Usually political things happen for the better. Hopefully we don't start more than 2 or 3 more wars this month, So I think we actually have tariff fatigue. We sort of just said, you know what? We've absorbed the tariffs are going to get us. We're just going to change the subject matter. Everyone has a pretty short attention spell. We've figured that out. We'll move on in that regard. But it's a cautious period. There's no one wants to get too deep into land. And the equity, there's lots of equity sitting around waiting to do deals. But I think that this year will be the year that somebody goes first, and the first once or 2 or 3 go into deals. They're a little bit like lemmings. And I don't know if you know what that means. I made that comment to my young guys one day. They go, "What's he talking about, lemons?" I said, "No, lemmings is a
No,
little rodent in Norway that when one jumps off the cliff, the rest jump off the cliff." And so
they all
we
follow each
think
other.
exactly. We see market conditions get slightly better. The absorption gets a little bit better. The occupancy rates go up a little bit. The rents go back up a tad. We think the lemmings will start to jump off the cliff with some cash, cautiously, but we think by the time we get to July of 26, we'll be going, yeah, this isn't all bad. And I will say this, as much as moaning and groaning as I sound like, 2025 for us, a lot of work, but in our 35 years in business, it's in the top 5 in terms of volume and profitability. Yeah, it's not the best, not the second best, but yeah, if it's number 5 out of 35, I'll take that every day.
That's great. Where are sellers' expectations still lagging reality, if at all?
Oh, sellers' expectations. Sellers, because of scarcity of sites approved, ready to go, and scarcity of sites because of this hot market we've had for decades, sellers are reluctant to talk about that price reduction. So they're willing to wait a little bit because let's say I have a $30 million property. Well, if I take a 30% haircut and I'm down to 20, that's still a lot of money. If I wait 2 years, if I just hold on to my $30 million price and get it, I can't take that 20 million in 3 years and get it back to 30. So that's kind of the rationale is the scarcity. It's my only bite of the apple. I'd rather just hang around pretty close to my price. I might take a little reduction, but I don't mean 30% or 40% or 50% reduction. There's a cat and mouse game going. Now, do things happen? Sure. There are those life-changing events. Someone passes away, someone gets divorced, someone becomes incompetent, and the next generation may go, I don't love this land nearly as much as daddy or granddaddy did. What's the number? What's the deal?
Bill, what's actually driving demand today? Is it housing, industrial, infrastructure, institutional capital, or something else?
I think the continuing it's slowed in terms of the numbers, but the continuing good job formation that the Tampa Bay area has been able to build an infrastructure for those jobs. We have a lot of young people who have gotten their education, maybe went away from here or somewhere else, got a great education, and on their target list, Tampa might have been number one or two or three in their cities of choice. Young people are very smart about where they go to live today, and they've picked it out for lifestyle, sports, quality of life, restaurants, 365 days a year of good weather, or 350 days of good weather and 2 weeks of hurricanes, maybe. But they figured out that Tampa is a place to go, and there are lots of them here now. So they have contemporaries. I'm amazed. I walked around at Christmas time at our top mall, and you think you're on Rodeo Drive with Gucci and all the big name stores. But this time when I went there, I haven't been to the mall in a long time, but this time when I'm walking around going, hey, there's actually shoppers in this store. There's two or three people deep at the counters, and there are people walking around on this upper level with little fancy shopping bags. Go, wow, retail sales. So I think the reality has become that we are who we always wanted to be. Most of my career, we had to envy Charlotte, Dallas, Austin, Nashville were always held up as examples of go-go cities, and we were called a tertiary city. That's a really ugly word, tertiary. We've gone from tertiary to being something else. We might not be primary, but we can give Austin a pretty good run for their money. I think we can give Charlotte a pretty good run for their money these days. We just have to watch affordability. We've snuck up a little bit in housing pricing, partly because we could, probably because there was so much demand, and probably because of government raising impact fees by, from $10,000 to $30,000 a house, something like that. So that's had an impact on our young people. We're a good growing city. We've grown by leaps and bounds in terms of not only physically, but in our ability to govern, in the budget that the city of Tampa has a great surplus, and in plowing back into infrastructure. I think that's all boded well for the next 20 or 30 years here.
Beautiful. What are the biggest risk factors you see creeping into deals right now?
Well, in deals, there's still that uncertainty about where we're going with inflation, where are we going with interest rates. I think we're all in the right direction. In terms of factors in our marketplace, as a growing state, we have future demand for water don't know that we have all the solutions we need for that. One of the unfortunate things, maybe it is a solution, but the agricultural people use a lot of water for citrus, for tomatoes, use a lot of water for irrigation. Those crops are phasing out, not necessarily due to anything other than world economics. Young mothers don't like to feed a lot of sugar to their kids, so they don't feed you orange juice they once did. We got a disease killing our citrus trees. It came from China. Imagine that. There's a zinger for you, but it's a reality, right? So as we see crop rotations stop and land become fallow, that water goes back into our system, our supply. So that's a little bit of a problem. But I don't know that we have total solutions to that, and I also don't see us building enough transportation for another 5 million people. We've got one light rail thing that built Miami up to Orlando, some discussion about extending it to Tampa, but we have buses for our urban travel, and they were free for a while last year to get people to ride them. When they started charging a buck, everybody was complaining, going, $1 to ride a bus. So what do you think you ought to pay? I mean, I don't know, man. But we don't have a big mass transit system in play or in planning that might help alleviate some of the transportation. We're building some roads, but not enough roads to keep up with it.
From what I hear from fellow investors is insurance is a big issue in Florida in general. How do you counteract that?
It was, especially after the two hurricanes of '04 or 24, excuse me. Yeah, '04 too. But 24 was a bad one. Knock on wood. 25, we didn't have any. And in the meanwhile, our government-owned Citizens Insurance has decided they had way too much exposure. They wanted out. So we've had, I think now, up to 14 new insurance companies come to Florida. They were fortunate. They were able to buy policies from Citizens and get in business. So they have a base. They're now busy underwriting new subscribers. And they're going to be able to put a year and a half under their belts without hurricane damage. So I'm pretty optimistic. I actually invested some money in a new insurance company going, oh, this is pretty cool. Yeah, this could be a great opportunity. So I think we're never going to go back to the rates we had before the last hurricanes. They never do. They go up, then they fall back because competition brings them back down. Then we get a couple of hurricanes, and they go up. Hurricanes are a fact of life. You keep raising deductible. My deductible used to be $5,000 in my house. Now my deductible is $57,000. I had to put a new roof on to make those guys happy. And so the last storm I had $56,500 in damage. Imagine that, just a hair under my deductible. Right? I wasn't about to contest it. I think I had more, but who knows? Life goes on. You can't forget about it. If the hurricane's coming, you worry about it. It goes past you, and it's like, oh, okay, well, it's going to hit the guys up in Fernando Beach or New Orleans or somewhere else. And so it's kind of a fact of life. It just goes on.
When you look at land opportunity, what is the first things that you want to know in order to understand the real value?
What's the zoning? What's the uplands? Where are the utilities? Any wildlife on here we need to be worried about, like an eagle or some other protected species? What's the seller's motivation? And then I do a lot of single family and multifamily lands. My next couple of questions are, where's the Publix grocery store planned or coming? Where's the hospital planned or coming? So that's just a real quick checklist of 100 questions we need to ask.
Those are fantastic. What are the hidden deal killers, things that don't show up in the glossy OM?
Well, we see glossy OMs that say utilities nearby. What's that mean? 100 feet or 1,000 feet or a mile or 10 miles? Yeah, so that's a little bit of a one. Second one is, what's the title look like? Florida has had, way back in the 1950s, oil scouts out of Texas who came out here and wrote a whole bunch of oil leases with farmers, paid them a few bucks, took those leases back to Texas where people thought oil leases were worth something, and sold them at auctions on courthouse steps. So today we still have a whole bunch of property with leases. Some are recorded, some aren't. They keep cropping up. But when you call somebody in Texas, say, I'd like to buy your Florida oil lease, it's worth a lot more to them than what you want to pay for it. So that's one of the first things we want to do is have our title company make a quick check and see what's there for easements. And the other thing is drive the property and look around. I look for cattle. Who own them? Is there a cattle lease here to some rancher to keep this property in Greenbelt? Does he have a 20-year lease that we can't disturb? I mean, that's happened to me. And then I drive around and I see a deer hunting stand. Who has that? And how'd they get there? Are they a poacher, or have they paid $50,000 a year for the right to hunt deer? Because that's a real conflict of an interest to a subdivision. So we want to checklist those things in a hurry. And also with the survey and the title work, is there a high pressure gas line running under the entranceway here or across the property that's not visible to the naked eye? So what's hidden? Not here. Then a quick look at historical maps. What's the use here? If it's a commercial site, was this a gas station? Was this a dry cleaner at one time who dumped stuff down the drains? Was this a gas station 1950s where the tanks leaked? They call them, lust, leaking underground storage tanks. Those are just some of the things that are not visible to the naked eye when you're out there. The other thing I really insist on my team guys doing, get on the site, get out of your vehicle, shut the motor off, walk around, and here's what's going to happen. You're going to hear the sounds of neighboring uses. You might not see them, but what if there's a sawmill or an airport or a railroad track or something makes a lot of noise frequently? What if there's a chicken farm right over the knoll or the other side of the swamp? They don't have a great odor. Or a swine farm, a hog farm. Those kinds of things are pretty obnoxious if you're downwind from them, especially. Smell it, feel it, walk on it, see what the soils feel like under your boots. It's old fashioned, man. We kid here about we have AI, and I've got a bunch of guys that are 22, 23, 30, 35, 40 years old, all different, AI and different things we do. And I think it's great to do a written description of a town or a neighborhood, something like that. But I did a proposal to some folks the other day, and they're repeat clients. They have some land that's ready for development, and they're ready to sell. They're all older than me, and I'm going to be 84 in June, and they're older than me. And one of them said, Bill, well, are you going to be using any AI on our property? I said, yeah, my young guys are going to do some write-ups on it, and I'm going to verify it, but I'm also going to use the other AI. And they said, what's that? I said, well, the AI that you're all talking about, but the other AI is actual intelligence. We're going to use actual intelligence too. So I think it's a combination. You need to use both. And I've seen some stuff written by AI going, man, in fact, we had a conference meeting this morning. 3 different guys had some AI recording our meeting. Okay. One AI recorded a property is $43 million. The second one recorded is $43 billion. There's a small difference of 3 more zeros there. Go, wow. Okay. I was at that meeting. I think I missed a $43 billion deal,
That's a big difference.
Yeah. So I think it's coming. I think there's a lot of changes coming. I just had a friend that was at the big show in Las Vegas, the huge show, and he's a builder, and he came back and he said, oh my God, there's just so many ways this could apply in our business. My head is spinning about what do we do on the construction side with AI, and how do we improve inventories? How do we improve construction techniques? And on the office side of it, how do we apply it? Bill, we might be putting you guys out of business. We use AI to find all the sites in the world. I said, yeah, you might, but You can't go out there and smell it. You can't go out there and feel it. You can't go out there and hear it. So I understand, and I think my industry is under some pressure from AI to replace us. Some home builders are hiring bunches of really bright young MBAs out of real estate schools to help source land. God bless them. I think we need to join what they're doing, not fight it. If we fight it, we're dead.
No, I agree with everything you just said. There's some things that AI can't really be able to replicate, right? Like you said, getting out there, smelling it, feeling it, touching it.
Yeah. Well, I think getting out there and meeting, I mean, I can't tell you how many solicitations a day and over the holiday weekends or over the weekends telling me how they can help me convert leads. I don't know that there's too many AI people who can talk to a rancher and get a rancher convinced to take my phone call. They're a hard-nosed bunch. They want to do business with people they know and people they trust. So some of these I've been cultivating for 20 and 30 years. I've been going to rodeos. I've sponsored events at local rodeos. I've helped take my horse to some ranches and work cattle on a Saturday morning. I'm not there to sell their land for them. I'm there the day they need somebody, they know who to call. I spend 10 or 12 days a year at a local ranch here that has a quail operation. Paying guests at their ranch, since the day opened, I don't know, 18 or 19 years ago, I spend several $1,000s a year there. We don't talk about selling their land. We talk about their cattle. We talk about their quail operations. We talk about what's happening in the neighborhood, other ranchers, and who they're selling for and to, and all that stuff. That they're not going to answer a AI phone call or AI email or if something like that. You need to call the dirt dog today or take a phone call from them. That's not going to happen. There's still a need for hands-on. There's a need for networking. There's a need for those kinds of things that just don't happen unless you're in a spontaneous environment. I still go to 2 or 3 networking events a week. I have 14 or 15 young guys. I don't think go that many collectively some weeks. They don't believe in it. They don't have a business card on them when they go either. I'll send you an email. I'll send you a text. Okay, great. I never hear from you anyhow. It's just very strange that they don't do it. Because when I went to one last week in Orlando. It was a statewide meeting for land and commercial brokers. I had a dinner. I couldn't get up from the table. People come over and want to talk to me. Now I'm the dirt dog. Been around a long time, and I in a very small circle. I might be semi well known or looked up to, but it's amazing how much business comes to me by being the dirt dog and being out there, not sitting at home in my ranch looking at my computer to see if somebody's trying to call me or send me an email or a text in the middle of the night. It's pressing the flesh. It's still part of the business.
Building relationships, right? I've always said that we're not in the real estate business or the investment business. We're in the relationship building business.
Yep. And we're here to solve problems for people that don't know they have a problem yet.
Beautiful, beautiful. Bill, you're going to ranches and rodeos in Florida?
Oh yeah. Well, this is a big time cow country.
I didn't know that.
I'm gonna walk over here and show you something in the background.
You ever think about as Tampa as the city and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and,
So looking over my shoulder,
Sure,
there's a map,
there is.
and it is a map of the largest ranch in Florida. It's called Desiree Ranch, done by the Church of Latter-day Saints. It is the largest ranch in Florida. It has over 250,000 acres, and it is a huge cow-calf operation. They raise beef, thousands of head of cattle. I don't know how many, because you can't ask a guy how many head of cattle he have. It's the same thing as me asking you how much money you have in the bank. But they have thousands of cows there, and they raise thousands of calves every year. And then those calves are trucked to the Midwest and Texas to feedlots because it's cheaper to haul them to the feed than all the feed to them. But we're I think number 1 or 2 in cow-calf operations, number 8 or 9 in the whole nation in terms of head of cattle and are in Florida.
See, I only think of like Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, North and South Dakota, that being, the ranching places, or Texas, of course.
Well, Texas is huge. You can't tell a Texan much, right? So they're pretty opinionated, but they do have, I think, number 1. But if you think a small state like Wyoming, where it might take 100 acres of land to raise 1 cow, not much to eat, a lot of mountains, where here we might be able to sustain a cow on 10 acres. And we got grass that grows almost year round. So we're a pretty natural operation for it. I've ridden on this ranch for 8 days. We did a great Florida cattle drive out there 4 years ago. We had 1,000 head of cattle. We moved them every day for a week around the ranch and across a couple other ranches. Got in about 140 miles, slept on the ground or in sleeping bags. So it's pretty cool. And we do a ride called the Cracker Trail Ride. The Florida Cowboys are referred to as crackers because of the whips they use to crack the sound of the whip to bring the cattle out of the swamp. They didn't beat the cattle with them, but they scared them with it. So they're called Cracker cowboys or cracker cow hunters. We do a ride every year in February across the state from Bradenton over here in the Gulf to Fort Pierce on the East Coast. And it commemorates the original cow hunters after the Civil War who rounded up cattle and drove them out to the ships to ship them out here because the soldiers came home from the Confederate Army, had nothing else to make a living, and they had to feed their family. General U.S. Grant from the Union Army let them take home their horse and a gun. So they had a way to make a living. There was no law in Florida. You couldn't grow much. You didn't have much fertilizer and that kind of thing. So round up these cattle that were left by the Spanish in 1521. There was a lot of cattle out there in the swamps. You just had to wound them up, get them out to the ocean, put them on a ship. And Cuba needed beef, so they shipped them to Cuba. And that's really the beginning of the Florida cattle industry 500 years ago.
Florida cowboys.
Florida cowboys. Yep. Called cow hunters.
Cow hunters.
Yep.
Bill, if you could teach a young land investor one framework for evaluating land, what would it be?
Know where the roads are going. Figure out where the roads are going to go and get in front of it and buy it.
Excellent. You were a senior asset manager during the RTC era. Lots of people today have known up cycles or easy capital. What does that time period teach us about risk, liquidity, and leverage that still matters right now?
The RTC was product of Congress. Congress deregulated the savings loan industry, let them get in the development business, made money easy flowing. Appraisals were not held to a very high standard, maybe didn't have a lot of regulations perhaps. So we had inflated appraisals. We had easy money. And that's a bad combination that brings the bad boys out of the woodwork. And so we just had this crazy runaway period in the late 80s where the savings loans were handing out money left and right, doing 120% loans to value because they could, and creating an interest reserve, meaning that they put some money aside. Every month, the lender pulled the money out of the reserve. So the loan performed, and the bad guy ran off with the bulk of the money and disappeared somewhere. So we saw huge collapses in the 1990-92 period when the RTC took over virtually every savings and loan in the Sun Belt. It wasn't a Rust Belt problem because they hadn't been making the crazy loans, but from Charlotte, Tampa, and Florida was the center of it. Texas was the center of it. Arizona, Southern California, all major roles in the RTC collapse. It was just regulations that were designed to fail probably by the feds. They certainly did fail. No one was watching the hen house. All the foxes were in the hen house grabbing everything they could. And so it wiped out the savings loan industry practically back in those days. It took land from 0 to 2,000 and back to 3. I mean, when it came back. The ton of land came back to almost couldn't give it away. I actually had nightmares about running the sales center that someday the Wall Street Journal would look at some of the deals that I did back in 1991 and 1992 within the guidelines. They're all certainly perfectly within the framework of disposing of those assets. But I could just see coming back and go, wait a minute, you had a $14 million shopping center. It had a Publix grocery store in it. Nobody else was paying rent. So it was a classified loan and you sold it for $6 million. How'd that happen? Well, that's what it paid for. We wrote stuff down from 20,000 an acre to 2,000 an acre. Even in the 08 cycle, we had finished lots that we were selling in 07 for 50,000 a unit, finished, completed, curbs in, streets in, ready to go. We sold those by 2009 and 10 for 3,500 a lot. Nobody wanted them. The world was panicked. The whole world almost turned upside down, I think, in 09. It was pretty scary when General Motors filed Chapter 11 and Lehman Brothers went down, all that stuff. So we've had two big scary ones, and I think that one was scarier than the RTC days personally. So, boy, when the rats jump off the ship, man, they leave nothing behind. Everybody goes and takes everything with them.
I remember you could buy a brand new house in Florida for over $20,000.
Yep.
2009.
Yep. And you got some isolated areas, maybe even under $10,000 because they were out in the middle of nowhere, no reason to sustain them or support them. The house itself, there are houses in some of those old planned developments that were done by the land barons back in the 70s. Built thousands of lots and sold them, $100 down and $50 a week the rest of your life kind of thing. Rotunda being a big example down toward Fort Myers. Well, there were a few houses built in there, were scattered, and the drug guys would come in and take them over and make them grow houses. Tap into utilities, put a couple of bad boys in there with big heavy armament, and the sheriffs were afraid to go in there. That's a death zone, So it was pretty scary.
Patterns do you recognize today that remind you of the past cycles, Bill?
I feel pretty good about today in that I don't think we have a lot of inventory. We certainly don't have any bank debt on land that scares me. I keep hearing, and again, I'm a little bit outside my arena, I keep hearing there's so many loans coming due on office and hotel and apartments, but everyone keeps, oh, that's going to destroy the economy. And I keep saying to myself, yeah, but you can always renew the loan as long as the government doesn't force you. And I don't think we have an administration that wants to choke us off like maybe they wanted to do in some past administrations. As long as the government doesn't force the lenders to call those loans, we rewrite them. They don't extend and pretend. So I I think we have the there's some trouble there. There are some loans that are over, where the loan value is higher than the value of the property. Will the market correct that someday? Sure. Will government, because we're in a re-election, or what if we have a change of administrations basically through the House and the Senate next summer or next year, and they start putting pressure on the regulators, that could put pressure on some of those loans. So that worries me in the back of my mind, but then I can't control any of that, so I don't spend too much time at nighttime worrying about that one. My land stuff is probably not coming down. I don't think we are fortunate that during COVID we had the governor that we had who kept doors open and we kept on doing business and we brought people here. Try to think about, oh my goodness, what would we have been like had it flipped? And we're in a big state, in our election that time around for DeSantis, I can't remember, it's 50,000 or 70,000. It wasn't very many votes out of 20 million people that he won by. And had his opposition won, his opposition might have been a lot different. It would have been a blue state, would have shut down, and my life would have been much different today. So, yeah, just those kinds. I worry about the political. I've watched a couple of counties here because of the new people and some of the things maybe they worry about in terms of utilities and so forth, that a couple of county commissions have flipped from I guess red to blue last summer. If that happens to too many counties, what the heck am I going to do if they don't want any more people here? They don't need any more land. So this, I can't control that, but I do support the candidates that I think understand what's happening with growth and where we should be with Florida. That probably support where I want to be. I'm sure I don't support anybody that doesn't.
The market turns, Bill. What types of land deals get hurt first and which ones survive?
Well, yeah, it's a geographic thing in some ways. It's concentric. So the ones furthest out from the center of interest are the ones that get hurt the most. They feel it the quickest, and if they're over leveraged, they're the first ones to get it. Secondly, the ones with leverage, and there aren't too many of those, but sometimes there's a leveraged loan that's not only acquisition but development. And if it was made to a B or C player instead of an A player, they may feel it because their buyer is going to be a home builder if they're developing residential land, and home builder is a big national public company says, we're not taking your lot this quarter. Sue us. We don't want them. And they're sitting there going, oh my God, I got to sell land in order to pay my note. Some of the weaker players perhaps then feel it next. So it's geographic concentric, and then it's the strength of the player would be the next one behind it that feels it.
Amazing. Bill, you mentioned projects like the Tampa History Center, John Hopkins All Children's Hospital. When you're working on complex sites that matter to a city, what's the real work behind the scenes that makes those deals happen?
The political process, the History Center, the mayor called me up. It's a good friend of mine, Dick Recco. Billy, I want that site done. I said, good. We have it for sale for $8 million for. He said, yeah, I want it. Any problem? I don't have any money. I said, okay, that's a problem. Yeah. And he said, the city wants that site. We think we need to have that site. I think the History Center should go there. I said, okay. Well, what are we going to do to solve your problem? He said, I don't know. You come up with some ideas. So they came up with the idea of going to the Trust for Public Lands. They were a partnership. They came in and put up the money to buy it with an agreement on the side with the city that if they're going to pay $8 million for it somewhere down the road, the city's going to find funding from the state or feds or some other source internally, and they'll pay them $12 million. Trust for Public Lands can make a nice spread, solve a public problem, everyone gains from it. And I'm using those numbers as an example, but it wasn't quite that much. I think it was paid 8 and got 10.5 or something like that for it. Trust for Public Lands made a nice spread on it, but they stepped up at a period of time when the city needed them. So that's an example there. On All Children's, I represented a landowner. A couple of brokers from Cushman and Wakefield represented the tenant. But what we had happen there was that we had to work behind the scenes with the county commission and the economic development folks. This site wasn't zoned for a hospital, and they fast tracked it. They really got on their high horse and speeded it through the process. And I mentioned those two because to me, those are legacy projects. When I drive down the street and see the History Museum there, I go, oh, that's cool. I helped make that happen. That could have been a condo, just another name condo, La Brisa condo or something. And when I drive up and see Johns Hopkins under construction on 112 acres in the northwest or northeast part of Pasco County, hour north of Tampa, I think, There'll be future generations of children who will benefit from this being out here. There'll be jobs created out here forever. And so those two are legacy deals for me. They're not just another retail development, another housing subdivision, another community. As nice as they can be, these are legacy deals for the public good down the road, for a heritage deal. So I mentioned those two because of the legacy impact of them.
That's amazing. How did you get John Hopkins deal done?
It was crazy. I had it listed for a client of mine, and we had it listed for 18 million. We had it under contract to a retail developer for that price. They left, I don't know, $500,000 or something on the table, hard money. They wanted an extension for free. We said no. So they went away. They left their deposit. And my client called me up and said, "What are you going to do now, Dirt Dog?" And I said, "I don't know. I think we ought to raise the price." He said, "What do you mean raise the price?" I said, "Well, it's been a couple of years. The market's gone up. Great location. The new interchange is now improved and in place." He said, "To what?" And I said, "I think we ought to raise it to 24 million." He said, "Are you crazy? We'll never get 24 million." I said, "Well, I can guarantee you one thing. We probably won't get 24 million if I don't ask it. So maybe I'll only get you 22, but that's more than 18, you know? So anything over 18 is a bonus by this strategy." He said, "Well, I guess I like your logic. Okay, let's try it." So we did, and along came Johns Hopkins, and we just dug in and said, "That's the price. We're willing to wait. We have no debt, and if we got to wait 10 years and get 30 million, we're willing to do that." And Johns Hopkins blinked, wanted it, did it. So it took a lot of work. It took a lot of work with the Cushman guys to convince them this was the right site. They were looking at other sites. And it took a lot of work with Johns Hopkins to understand our site. And it has a hospital going up, but they also can build they can build apartments, and they may build apartments on there for their workforce to solve, the issue of workforce housing. So it's got a lot of pluses to it. It's right at a new interchange with the interstate, and the feeder road that comes off the interstate goes all the way across the rest of the county with 12,000, 15,000 new homes to come out that way. So it's strategically well located, and we had to do a lot of work on convincing them, or showing them, maybe not convincing necessarily, showing them what was happening with the new housetops coming that would provide workers, provide children that they're going to have to take care of, and just fit a need.
Amazing. Is it complete, or are they still building?
No, they are. I was just past a couple of days ago. They've got, I guess they're up to the third floor. I don't know how many floors they're going. I think they're going 5 floors, but they're up to the third floor on the concrete work.
Amazing.
So it's
Amazing.
underway. A couple of years yet.
What stakeholders matter the most in those deals, and how do you navigate alignment?
Well, I guess I have to say the county commissioner or city council are always the stakeholders. They hold all the cards. So they're interesting. They're interesting a lot. Put it that way. They'll oppose you. They'll fight you. And when the ribbon cutting comes, they're standing there at the ribbon cutting, going, "This is the greatest project since sliced bread." So, but you got to get. I try to go to a lot of fundraisers. I do write a lot of checks. I don't write checks to buy influence. I just write checks so I get a phone call back from somebody to explain my case. But I think working with those, and then working with the community leaders who, if they don't know in a vacuum, are probably going to post something. Johns Hopkins Hospital, oh my God, we'll have sirens, we'll have, you know, druggies, everybody taking care of alkies out there. I mean, whatever they worry about, you got to say, no, this is for the little children that need help. All the diseases that can impact them, from abuse to physical diseases. That's who's going to come here. And it could be your grandchild, the kid next door. It's working some of that just to give a clear picture of what's going to happen.
Even the hospital, they're showing the negatives or looking at the negatives. I mean, it's not a casino, right?
People want affordable housing and hospitals over there, and high schools. They want them all over there because they perceive that all of them bring their own problems. That the high schools, casinos, the hospitals, I guess, all bring traffic and noise and disruption to a pastoral place out there. So we're turning orange groves and cow pastures into housing and everything that supports it. And if you've been here for generations, living out there, living a nice quiet lifestyle on a back road at the 4-wheel drive pickup, and you're living on a dirt road and you got a nice place, this is a big change in life. And so I don't want to change your life, man. I want you to take that hospital somewhere else. So
makes sense. Where do deals typically stall, and how do you keep the momentum?
Constantly looking for what's going to kill it. What's the deal killer coming that we can maybe head off? I actually teach a class on Bill's top 10 deal killers. I got to change that. I probably could Bill's top 20 deal killers, that things that didn't see coming, didn't anticipate, popped up. So I continue to look for the deal killers long before they become deal killers.
What are some of the top deal killers?
Arsenic in the soils, or arsenic. Arsenic was used to ripen grapefruit. Arsenic was used in mixture of water in troughs in the ground, big long troughs where they drove the cattle through to kill the Texas Tech, and they were mandated by the state. Arsenic doesn't break down. So if you had 1,000 head of cattle out there and you dipped them every 2 weeks, you had a large area where they still stood out there and drip dried. You had tanks built by cowboys, not contractors, and where they use arsenic, who knows how they handled it, but it can cover a pretty wide area. And the risk is that someone builds a house and kids eat dirt, kids get in the backyard and dig up dirt and has arsenic in it. So that's a real big killer there. One of the scary ones that is a little bit of a mixed emotion for me even is an archaeological find. You have two streams that come together and it's going to be ideal. Man, it's so beautiful. Two little streams here. We can build an amenity, build a clubhouse, and then you find out you got an Indian burial mound, or you have a mound of some kind, or artifacts and relics that show up. I had another one, are sacred, right? Where are they? Are they here? Are they on my property? I had one property, two streets called Centralia and US 19, big major road. Big major road ran right up along the west coast of Florida. It's as far west as you go and not be out in the swamplands before you got out to the water. So it's on the last high ground. Centralia crisscrossed this county, starting at 19 and running eastward. So we get under contract. I never think anything about what Centralia might have been. I thought it was just the name of a street that was in the middle of the county. Well, we did do an archaeological study, found out the town of Centralia sprung up in 1910 to cut cypress trees, and in a couple of years there were 5,000 people living in Centralia, and bars, a general store that was 3 stories tall, biggest general store outside of Tampa and Jacksonville in all of Florida. It was a booming town. Had a lot of bars, had a couple of churches. Well, what's the concern? You got a hazardous industry and you got a church. If you got a church, where's the cemetery? Because some of these guys had to be killed out there on that rough job. And we spent a lot of money with ground penetrating radar. In this case, did not find any burial plots on our properties. Either they were buried somewhere else or shipped off site. I don't know, but we didn't have them on us, but we were worried about it. We had another one that was a ranch. Family had owned this ranch since the 1950s. They were a wealthy family down in Miami. This ranch up in the middle of Florida. They hadn't seen it in 40 or 50 years. They had a rancher running cattle on it and listed it with us. So we went out and drove it, walked it, rode my horse on it, called them out and said, you have 20,000 tires out here probably. Some tire disposal company has found your property really, really convenient to just dump them instead of paying to take them to a disposal place. So we had a $50,000 tire cleanup, number one. Number two, when we got our survey in, we were adjacent to a historical black church and historical black cemetery. No big deal. However, in the survey, there were 6 coffins or graves on our property, 25 feet off their property line onto us. And it was 4 of them in a row and 2 across the bottom, right around the corner of our property. Uh-oh, now what do we do? Black cemeteries are sacred down here. A lot of them were destroyed just in the 50s and 60s and 70s just because they could. Today, they're pretty politically hot potato. Number one. Number two, the descendants have the right to come visit those graves. Oh, well, that means they got to come all the way across the ranch to get down this corner. That's not good for future use. What else do we want to think about here? 3, the process of disinterring and reburying is a problem. There's a whole bunch of permits involved. Find the errors. Where are you going to put them, too? Is the cemetery full? So I think it was my idea. If I said, you know what? Why don't we just give them a couple acres? Why don't we just survey out past those graves, 100 feet, down to the corner and back over past the other ones down there and back up and tied into them? It's a couple acres, but out of 1,000 acres, it's no big deal here. It's the cheapest solution we can come up with. We found the deacons of the church and the cemetery. Well, they were happy to bring their brethren back in, I guess, back into the fold, so to speak. So
Right.
they gained another 20 burial spots for the land in between these ones. And they got back their four that were, it's easy to understand. It's way out in the middle of nowhere. There's no markers to say you're on church property or you're on the ranch property. So it was a good solution. But those kind of things are scary, man. You wake up and go, oh, we're not closing anytime soon with this problem. How do we solve this? So, I've been able to solve a couple of things like that were kind of scary.
Those are some big deals.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Double Branch, a 1,000 acre mixed use park. What's the vision there? And what makes a project like that hard, but worth doing?
Well, the last time we did a 1,000-acre park was 1983 along Interstate 75, way back when in Hillsborough County. This is land up in Pasco County, a county north. And this one had gone through a bunch of shenanigans back in the 2001 to 2005 period. We had a land developer came in, teed it all up. Then he was going to have Charlie Daniels come in and do a big Charlie Daniels band there, just like Dolly Parton did in Dollywood. And that didn't work. And it was just scammed a bunch of people, actually. And one of the people he scammed were some investors who put a lot of money in the property because they believed in him. And this guy filed Chapter 11, and they had a hard time chasing it. Took them took them almost a decade to chase him down, get through the bankruptcy. They had put so much money into it that the court eventually awarded them the property. And these are California engineers who designed actually some of the very early drones and made a lot of money. Land in Florida was not what they wanted. And so they tried to figure out, and they didn't trust anybody because they'd been screwed over so badly about over this piece of land down here. And part of the disadvantage, I guess, would be just kind of the blatant truth. They were a Muslim family. This is in pretty much a redneck county. There's not a lot of sympathy for, hey, from California. That's one strike. Two, being a foreign descent. You don't speak the local language in Pasco County. There's not a lot of sympathy for you. They interviewed a lot of people, and somehow they saw in me somebody that they trusted, and so we got the listing. And we started out at around 20 million for it, but the market was getting better and better. And we just, every time somebody came in and offers, if they offered us 18, we were asking 20, we'd raise it to 22. Said, this market's getting better and better. And then, so in the summer of whatever year it was, 20 after COVID, 22, I think, or 23, I said to my clients, it's time to go. Let's just do a call for offers and run this thing. And we're going to make it that you have to close it 90 days after you go to contract. We're not going to let you have 3 years to screw around on permits because the market's hot. I'm getting lots of inquiries on it. And that's what we did. We ran it hard. We had a call for offers. We did a best and final with the last ones, and we got $53 million for it. They were so thrilled because they would have taken 20 when they first started. They'd have taken 30 along the way. They'd have taken 40. Taking 53, they were ecstatic. Nice to put our stamp on the second big park in 40 years or something, 50 years. Kind of nice.
Amazing. What do you think needs to be true for a project like that to succeed? Timing, infrastructure, capital, city alignment?
That starts with capital. That's the first. Got to have that. You got nothing. If you don't have that, if you have the capital, you can frequently tell a pretty good story. That you spend the money with the right engineers, right attorneys, and you go talk to the right county commissioners in this case. So not all, not the right ones, all of them, because they can look at it and go, wow, we have 1,000-acre park. It might not develop overnight, but over the next 20 or 30 years, this is an employment center for us. We want it to be jobs. This is a county that had a little bit of an inferiority complex in that 46,000 people a day drove out of their county south to Hillsborough County to work because they didn't have the jobs in their county. Well, so you give them 1,000 acres, eventually they're going to have some jobs on that site that they can be proud and say, these people not only live and work here and contribute to our community and stay here and don't put the traffic on the road and belong to our local organizations. It's a win-win.
Bill, what do you think the first step is that people skip when they think that big?
I think that the first step is they always forget how long it's going to take, really. How long? How long is it going to take to build it out? They probably pro forma it 10 to 12 years, and you get done as 20 or 30 because you go through these cycles and things. So I think that's the reality check on every one of them is, we underestimate how long it's going to take.
Your firm talks about the 5 E's: ethics, education, experience, engaged, and enthusiasm. In a business where reputations are everything, how do those values actually show up in day-to-day decision-making?
Well, I think you notice ethics is at the top of the list. So we preach to our team and we live it. Do the right thing all the time. You never get the opportunity to do the right thing and do it wrong. You can't come back from it. You hurt your reputation. Do the right thing, treat people right, follow the rules and regulations of the real estate commission and representing your client. Every day, remember who you represent in a transaction. Don't get lulled by promises or commissions or future work. Take care of your client, and your client will take care of you. And I think second is the education is important to us. We all strive to hold that accredited land consultant designation, that CCIM designation. We have, I think, we just added 3 new advisors and 1 support person in Orlando the first of the year. So I'm trying to count diplomas, but I think we have 4 master's degrees in our shop now. That's unheard of for real estate brokers. Land brokers used to be second choice or second career. You're a rancher and you sold some land, or you're 40 and you couldn't be hired by anybody else. None of the big firms downtown would hire you to do office leasing, so you went off and been a land broker. Now we have land brokers by choice. They're coming out of college. I've got a 22-year-old that graduated last May in finance. He's here. Before that, we had an honor student from USF, local university, in real estate, interned here and then joined us. So we're growing our own, and they're coming to us. We don't have to go find them because of who we are, I guess. So it's really cool that they come in and they show that enthusiasm, which is one of the E's, but they vow, they already have a basic education, but they vow to get to continue specialized education in the business. And it's mandatory. I mean, it's just you have to do it. It's not, well, you don't like to or you don't want to. You're going to have to do it. We want you to have it, partly because it takes our firm up against the glass ceiling, and the glass ceiling is a little higher for us, we're never going to get the assignment that a big firm like CBRE is going to get from General Motors. That's just not going to happen to us. They're not going to pick us. But I want to be as close up to the glass ceiling as we can be because of our education and our experience and our ethical conduct and standards and so forth. And, if you don't have enthusiasm, why are you doing it? So then the E's are a play on Eshenbaugh, I guess. So we started with one E, two E's, three E's, five. I think we got beyond five. We couldn't remember beyond five anyhow. So let's just stay with that.
Love it. This is the AI Edge podcast, Bill, and we treat AI as leverage, not magic. So in your world, where do systems and technology actually make land deals smoother? And where are they mostly just noise?
I think they make them smoother, first on just having that database of land that's out there and how it's categorized, how it's currently zoned. I think that's important. It makes it so much easier. I tell my guys, I used to have to go to the courthouse and spend all day Fridays there every day, every Friday, looking at microfiche. They don't even know what microfiche is, but it was film that you ran through a machine. You had to wait in line to get a machine, first off. I had to be down early. But it was the whole process of going through just searching, and driving around. I spent many a Saturday and many a Sunday driving around. Where's this road going to go? And who owns that land over there? See them out in the field on a horse, wave to them and try and get to know them. So the AI ability to amass information, to search zoning in 5 counties almost instantly, that kind of stuff is just labor saving and really fantastic for us. So that's terrific. I worry, though, that we try to override AI just a little too hard and take the human factor and the other AI out of the equation.
If you had to pick 2 systems that you never run without again, what do you think they would be?
2 systems. We use, we have Mac computers. Really love those. But we use on it a client management system called Daylight. It does a lot of services for it and tracks records and helps us report to our clients and keeps us on track really well. The iPhone. How in the world do you live without an iPhone these days? As a system. So that's good. We use a couple of things. We use Build Out. We use Box. Some later on things. My young guys use it more than I do, but we like it.
Nice. Where do you think the next 2 to 3 years of tech will actually change land brokerage, if at all?
I think it gives us a lot of heartburn in that home builders, for example, maybe apartment developers, will, as much as possible, bypass the brokerage network if they can. Some of them think, and I got to say, there's some really idiot brokers in my business. And there are residential people who think they want to be a land broker, but they don't have the skills and the tools in it. So some of my home builders and apartment developers are jaded that every broker in the world sends them stuff that they don't have any idea what they're doing. They're not competent in the business. So there's a reason why some of these home builders want to do it directly. It's not just to save fees. It's to actually get good information and hire bright people to do it themselves. So I think our competition comes from our clients. So we got to be cognizant of that, be on top of it, be providing whatever it is that their bright young people with AI can't do, we should be doing. That might be shaking hands, riding horses. I don't know, but it's got to be. There are some elements, human elements, that are going to stay in this business in the next 2 or 3 years.
But Bill, so your book is called Up the Shenandoah, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did I pronounce it right?
You did, yes. It's named after the Shenandoah River in Virginia and the Shenandoah Valley. And the reason it's called, it's a little bit of play on words, Up the Shenandoah, because the Shenandoah River flows north, one of the few rivers in North America that flow to the north. And so the objective of the Union Army under General Grant was to go up the Shenandoah, meaning I'm going south to Richmond and take the Confederate capital and get an end to this war when he was appointed general in command of the Union forces in early 1864. And I'm sure there's some soldiers sitting around the fire going, yeah, up to Shenandoah, man, Maybe they had a different meaning to it. But my great-grandfather spent 3 years in a cavalry in the Shenandoah Valley, and my grandfather at 16 ran away and joined another cavalry outfit and spent a year there for the surrender of it. So it's based on their actual engagements they were involved in. The rest of it's fictional history about the story back home and grandmother Dixon there taking care of the family and all. But it's pretty heartfelt from my perspective because I heard a lot of stories. My dad was born 1892. The protagonist, Will, was born 1824, and my dad's father, 1848. They worked together. They lived together until 1937 as single farmers. And my dad shared with me when we made fence, and I grew up without television. What did we do? We told stories. I heard stories, So a lot of this I heard a long time ago. I wish I had paid more attention. But I wrote the book kind of as a heritage to my family. I wrote the book because I wanted to be a history teacher until I found out back in 1958 it didn't pay any money. little bit of combination of things. It was fun to do.
Excellent. So you have that book, Up to Shenandoah. Why did you decide to write it, and what do you hope people feel when they finish it?
I wanted to write it to acknowledge the heritage of my family. I wanted to write it for connectivity for those who are 2 and 3 generations younger than me. You know, the 15-year-old, the 20-year-old out there that's a great niece or great nephew. My family's all still pretty collected in Pennsylvania, within 30 miles of each other. There's 5 or 6 houses now been built on our original farm that we got. Actually, we got our farm for service in the original Revolutionary War. One of my ancestors was a private. Continental Army had no money. They paid him in land out there somewhere. So we settled on it. We still own most of it. So I wanted that. And I just wanted to write a story as I imagined it might be back home for the mother with a bunch of little kids trying to maintain a family, maintain a livelihood, and not knowing what's happening to your husband who's off down there somewhere, not knowing what's happening to your son who's gone off at 16 and left you with these kids. He's gone off to join the war. And then what was the motivation of those ancestors? And I talk about it around the fire. I don't draw conclusions, but was it because you wanted to preserve the Union? Was it because you were you're anti-slavery? You're pro-freeman, maybe? Or was it for the simple $12 a month? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe some combination of all three. But I had them talk about it around the fire a few times, and I didn't draw any conclusions. I'll let you draw your own. But it's kind of fun to talk about it.
Well,
And I wanted those nephews and nieces to understand that life was tough. You had some really tough ancestors. You had to do everything. You had to grind your grain and pour your water up out of a well and build your fire. You want to go to church, you had to go out and get your horses out and put harness on them and drive a mile into town just to go to church. You and I do it in 3 minutes, right? So, yeah, it's tough. I want to understand what tough lines they came from.
I watched some of these historical documentaries, and it makes me think, man, I don't know. I mean, things are definitely more difficult then than they are today. And would we be able to survive?
I guess you grew up in it. It's different, right?
I guess. What did writing a historical novel teach you about yourself that business never did?
That's a great question.
That's good.
Yeah, I guess that I should have paid more attention to the stories, the history of the family. But it taught me the resilience of the human spirit. It taught me that as a country, a lot of people made a lot of sacrifices, more than you think about. I mean, there's lots of great stories of all the wars we've been in and the people who've gone off. I'm looking at my kid brother over here in the wall who was in Vietnam, with Purple Heart and Bronze Star, 2 Purple Hearts. Tough. He's a tough guy. But just the resilience to leave Germany in 1740 and come to Pennsylvania, and then to get from one end of Pennsylvania to the other, and to have a farm and trying to scrabble out on a hard, hilly, stony farm. I worked that farm. It was stony. It was hilly. It wasn't the best place in the world to be. I only want to know why they didn't go on to Ohio or some of that good flat land of deep, rich black soil. I don't just happened. Taught me that I came from some roots that are tougher than I am and stronger than I am, and I respect them more. I respect my ancestors more than I ever thought I would. One thing about land most people disagree with. Buy it and it will go up in value. Takes time, but it'll go up in value. It will go up. They're not making any more.
Okay. Most underrated deal skill.
Listening.
Best advice you've ever received.
Do the right thing.
What's one lesson you learned the hard way?
Signing up and watch your default. Everything's great when things are going great.
Yeah. Bill.
When it's not, watch them run for the hills, man.
This has been a great conversation. You brought decades of operator perspective, real cycle awareness, and the reality of how land deals actually get done. For listeners that want to follow your work, connect with you, check out your land company, and grab your book, Up at Shenandoah. Where's the best place to find you online?
Bill@thedirtdog.com, the email address. The book is on Amazon, Up to Shenandoah, or under my name, Bill Eshenbaugh. Either one, shoot me an email if you have a question about land that I maybe talked about here and you didn't understand. Shoot me an email. I try to respond to all of them.
Love it. Fantastic. Up to Shenandoah. Excellent. Thank you, Bill. That was fantastic. Thanks again for coming out and sharing what the land business really looks like, the cycle lessons most people skip, and how major projects get executed with ethics and experience that lead the way. This has been the AI Edge podcast. If you got value from this episode, share it with another operator, developer, or investor who wants the real truth about land cycles and getting deals done. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, Bill, for this.
My pleasure.